talking about voting. One issue that we're all concentrating on, paying attention to, especially in the political world, is the value and potency of the Trump endorsement. What is it worth? I've seen some media accounts, many media accounts, say it's been a mixed bag. I don't know how mixed bag it is, but there have been a couple of. I think Georgia's going to be a bad move on Trump. I think endorsing, Purdue over Kemp is going to end up being kind of a loss in the Trump column. But political columnist, commentator, Young Voices, Gabriella Hoffman is with us this morning. Gabriella, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you this morning?
So what are we to make of, thus far, the Trump endorsement?
It still has staying power. That's obvious. A lot of people are in denial about it. You don't have to necessarily agree with all of his endorsements because Republicans have a diverse set of opinions on candidates and even ideas. It's grown into a very big tent party in terms of where we stand and how those of us who vote Republican, especially in our conservative, where we stand on all that. But like you were mentioning before introducing me, yes, in different states, sometimes the Trump endorsement does not have staying power because Trump supporters or Republican voters sometimes have a little bit of differentiation with the president, maybe on whom to select, but he has a largely successful track record so far.
Gabriella, would you agree that the contrast between, in other words, in Pennsylvania, let's use Pennsylvania for an example, McCormick, Barnett, and Dr. Oz ran pro-America First campaigns. They may not have had the Trump endorsement. They may not have said, I'm the Trump endorsed candidate, but they all seem to run campaigns in this new norm of America First conservatism.
Yes, everyone is trying to run in that manner. You can see it all across the board. Sometimes that works very, very well in states, especially like in Pennsylvania. Sometimes you will still have to run like a traditional Republican and you can kind of lean into the America First policy platform. Also, some Republicans have had a lot of trouble if they run exactly like Trump. So people are finding out in the Republican Party today how to run. How do you appeal to America First platforms or Trump supporters? And we're going to see how that plays out in Pennsylvania soon. But like you mentioned, absolutely, people are trying to run to garner the support of Trump. They may not get his endorsement, and perhaps we'll see what happens there if the endorsement works. But a lot of people, even McCormick and Barnett, were trying to play into the Trump vote as well.
Gabrielle, last question. A lot of our listenership, a lot of our audience is in the 7th Congressional District in South Carolina. Congressman Tom Rice was one of 10 Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump. I don't think we've had a campaign yet of a Trump-endorsed candidate running against someone who voted to impeach Donald Trump. You care to comment on... we don't have any polling. I think there'll be a good bit of polling coming out next week. I've heard some public polling. But you know, we had West Virginia where someone voted for the establishment of the January 6th Commission against a Trump-endorsed candidate. Trump-endorsed candidate kind of mopped the floor with that. But that's kind of a consolidated district in West Virginia as a result of losing population. But how much is the nation paying attention to the 7th Congressional District in South Carolina when you've got a Trump-endorsed candidate versus someone who voted to impeach Donald Trump?
I don't think much attention has been given to the congressional district you're mentioning, and perhaps as the election approaches, there will be more national attention awarded to it. In other states, let's say in Wyoming with Liz Cheney, there's been a lot of attention with that, and we'll see how that plays out. But I think as probably the election approaches closer, everyone will start to pay attention. There are a lot of races, of course, so it's hard to keep track for those of us who work in media to spotlight everything until it comes onto our radar. So certainly I think the district will be awarded a lot of attention as your election approaches, and it'll be a test of whether or not the Republican who did vote to impeach Trump stays. Maybe he rebuilt and garnered the good graces of voters, or if, let's say, an alternative candidate in the Republican primary were to defeat them in that contest. So we'll see how it plays out. But politics is an interesting time right now, and yeah, certainly the president does have some staying power still, and it's really hard to gauge whether or not, he's going to lose it. We'll have to see as more races come about. But Republicans do seek out his endorsement. A lot of people look to see who he endorses, and I think, like I said, a lot of candidates try to run as America First in many instances. So you can have it be either ways, and I think the voters will ultimately decide in the Republican primaries how those votes stand out.
As they should. Thank you, Gabrielle. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.